Columnist and political scientist Richard Hidarian. Richard, the kind of drills we are seeing currently, sinking a vessel in Philippines' territorial waters for the first time using coordinated artillery and airstrikes, is this a message that Manila is sending to Beijing?
Oh, there are a lot of messages being sent here. I mean, just a short backstory. Actually, some of these war games were supposed to be conducted way to the north of the Philippines, particularly in Ilocos Norte, which is where the Marcoses, who are in charge of the Philippines once again, come from. But interestingly, presidential sister and Senator Amy Marcos, who heads the Foreign Affairs Committee, kind of grilled the military men the other month and asked them to relocate it because she felt it was too close to Taiwan and too provocative. So they brought it down a notch and relocated it to South China Sea. But nonetheless, the message is very clear. We are preparing for war with China, particularly if something really happens there in the South China Sea. And these Balikatan exercises are huge. 17,000 troops, more than twice the size last year, which was already one of the biggest. So the type, the size, the nature, the location, everything speaks volumes.
I wonder if Washington is also sending a message to Beijing, because given that the Philippines is a treaty ally of the United States, is there a possibility that Philippines gets dragged into any conflict over Taiwan as well?
We're just too close to Taiwan to not be affected by any potential conflict there, and allies cannot be neutral. So that is why the Philippines decided to be part of an effort, integrated deterrence effort, not part of a provocation effort, but to join hands with the United States. But by the way, there's another trilateral alliance also coming together. Everyone talks about AUKUS, Australia, UK, US, but the big one to also watch out for is the quiet, subtle one, but important one, which I call JAFOS, Japan, Philippines, US Trilateral Alliance. That is very much about the whole first island chain. So not only Taiwan, but both East China Sea and South China Sea. So US is, I won't say corralling, but mobilizing all of these treaty allies. And now the Philippines, I would argue that is the new star ally of the United States. So this is also a message by US that, hey, it's not just me versus you, China. I got a lot of allies in the region.
So help us understand the Philippines' strategy, more particularly President Marcos' strategy to deal with Beijing. There is the territorial disputes in the South China Sea, and then there is the obligations to Washington as being a treaty ally with Washington. So what exactly is the Philippines' strategy with regard to China?
Well, probably folks can read my books on explaining the whole history of the Philippine strategy, but to keep it very brief, what I can say is the Philippines over the past decade has really realized how serious is the implications for the Philippines when it comes to its sovereign rights in the South China Sea. And also now the Philippines is waking up to the possibility of potential war in Taiwan. So our geography has been our advantage, but right now it's also a point of vulnerability. So different Filipino presidents have tried to deal with it differently. Former President Aquino, the late President Aquino, tried to double down on his alliance with the United States while taking a confrontational stance toward China. And then in quite a schizophrenic way, we had a totally different position under the succeeding president, under Duterte. So now under Ferdinand Marcos Jr., Senior, we're having a much more, let's say, synthesis of those two positions, whereby we're not trying to unnecessarily provoke China, but definitely we want to keep our insurance policy intact, and that's the United States. But as I said, it's not just the US. Marcos is also reaching out to Japan, to Australia. We're already talking about the alternative quadrilateral alliance with Australia, Japan, and US. But the Philippines is also working quietly in building relationship with France, with Germany, and other major European power, not to mention India, which is also beginning to arm the Philippines. So it's a diversified, multi-vector option. But clearly, the US alliance is front and center as far as Marcos Jr. Deterrence strategy is concerned.
In all of this, how does President Marcos intend dealing with the domestic opposition that you alluded to a little earlier?
Yeah, I mean, just to be clear, I don't think the domestic opposition is strong enough yet. But as I said, the fact that the location of the Balikatan exercises was changed in response to Amy Marcos, presidential sister's opposition, the fact that you have former President Duterte now coming up vocally and criticizing it, the fact that now you have businessmen, including Chinese, Filipino businessmen on one hand, and then leftist, progressive, nationalist groups on the other, all